Okay, it says we are live and we are streaming. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, for those of you who are the teacher's pets in the classroom, is I need for you to start spreading the word, because we have a very special guest today with a wonderful story about perseverance, about taking ownership and turning your life around. So, because I want to remember hitting the record so that we can start the broadcast today. So if you're listening on podcast or if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, I'm so glad that you're listening today, because we're going to learn how to learn. So let me get the record ready for BitChute. This is for BitChute and podcast too. Okay, so here we go. Okay, guys, you're in for a treat. We have Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman, PhD, and we're going to learn about our potential to learn and grow and be the best that we can. So fasten your seatbelt, because it's time to learn together. Here we go. Time to dance, Dr. Scott.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough and it seems like your best ain't good enough, if you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friends. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, please know that in this classroom, I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope that you will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, today, many of us will experience some relatable moment with Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman, PhD. His story is no different than many of our stories, except he took his story and he changed it to improve who he is today. So I have to propose the question to you. Have you been told that you're stupid, or that you weren't smart enough to go to college, or that, that your dreams are just too grandiose? And maybe you even have a IQ test that prove that perhaps maybe they could be right. Well, this is the classroom for you, because he is living proof that you can figure out a way to make it through to whatever it is that you want. And so he is going to share his journey today, and he's going to talk about his new book. It's called Transcendence, or Transcend. And I don't have a copy of it, but he does. And every time I say it, he is going to show it to us. There we go. Transcend. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman is here to do just that. Welcome, Scott, to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show classroom.
What an honor to learn from you in this class today.
Well, I think the feeling is mutual. I've been really excited about meeting you and talking to you about your journey. So share a little bit about your background and what made you believe that you were not smart enough to go to school, let alone become a doctor.
Well, when we're children, we really listen to the experts. We don't tend to second guess teachers when they expect a certain thing out of us. And I had a learning disability, an auditory learning disability, for the first couple of years of my life. It was very hard for me to process things in real time. And I came across as slow. And I was put in special education and kind of given these messages that I was incapable of learning. And it really created this conflict within me because I desperately wanted more challenges and I wanted to learn and to discover things, but I was shut out from the ability to do that because of people's expectations of me. So I just really didn't question things for many, many years.
And so what was the turning point for you?
Well, there
At what point, and we can go right into this because your story, I actually saw your talk on TED Talk, your TED Talk. I believe it was a TED Talk. I did see your story through, was it TED Talk?
Yes, yes.
It's been a while. It's been a while since I
You're on it.
saw,
You're on it.
and I
Trust yourself.
loved your story. Excuse me?
Trust yourself.
Absolutely. I have learned that too.
You're right. Yeah.
So tell us about this journey of yours where, every step of the way you're being told that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're too slow, but you figured out a way.
Well, there was a turning point in ninth grade when a special education teacher took me aside after class and asked me, "Why are you still here? It seems like you're really capable. You're really frustrated." And I realized I had no good answer to that question because no one ever asked me that before.
Mhm.
And so it quickly turned in my head to why am I here? To like, yeah, why am I here? Like, let me try something else. And it really inspired me to take myself out of special education and sign up for regular classes. I had to have a whole meeting with the school psychologists and the school administrators and convince them that there was no liability if I ended up failing my classes, that they'd be able to put me right back into special ed. They were very nervous about letting me out, but I got out and I just became ravenously curious. I signed up for as many things as I possibly could, from theater to music, to Latin classes, to whatever I could that would challenge me intellectually and spiritually.
So with a quote unquote special education, I'm sure up to your freshman year, you were just accustomed to these classes thinking that, maybe were you bored? Were you angry? What was it like for you to be frustrated in your learning potential, or not even knowing that you had more, you could learn more?
I was very frustrated and I felt a lack of a sense of agency, a lack of sense of control over my own life, which caused me to do some things like I became like a computer hacker, for instance, when I was like 13 years old, and kind of regain control of my life. That was interesting. Just became just whatever I could do to just feel some sense of agency in my life. And, it's amazing that the difference, I think, after I started to question the way things were and try things out for myself, it's amazing the shift in my own mindset and view on the world and myself.
Okay, so in your freshman year, you're begging to go into just mainstream classes and you get put into classes. Now, did the teachers give you a break because they knew that you just came from a special education, or how did you adapt and would they work with you? Because I know that the public school system, I don't know if you were going to the public school system at the time, they have certain things like the 125. I don't know if they have that in where you live, but in Florida, they have a special education plan for students. Did you have anything like that?
No, there wasn't. Not after I got out. I wanted to be completely free. I should note that my learning disability, I outgrew it. It was no longer an issue even after third grade. But the point was, I was still kept in special education because I developed generalized anxiety as a result of being kept in special education. So they decided to keep me in special education even more. It's a vicious cycle that happens to a lot of kids. There are certainly real learning differences, real learning difficulties that students need support. I'm not lambasting special education, but I'm saying in my specific case and in a lot of cases, a lot of kids are caught in a vicious cycle, a vicious downward spiral, where they almost feel like there's nothing they can do to show that they're intelligent, because everything they do is a further indication of their disability. A lot of people who are in psychiatric wards report the same experience.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And so now here you are, you're almost graduating high school. You've got to take some tests to go to college. And what kind of anxiety are you experiencing then?
Still had a lot of test anxiety. I remember taking the SAT and seeing that timer on the screen, and I don't know why they have to show the timer on the screen while you're taking the test. It seems a bit unnecessary, and just very nervous, and didn't do spectacular on my SAT, but I knew that I wanted to go to college. I wanted to go to Carnegie Mellon. It was a dream of mine to go and study rethinking intelligence and new ways of thinking about intelligence. So yeah, I applied to their psychology program and got rejected because I don't think my SAT scores were high enough. But I still went in through the back door and went to the opera program.
Did you even know you could sing? I mean, did you
I
feel like you were strong enough singer to try out for
did. Yes. I did think that I had taken voice lessons and was in the choir, and so I figured, yeah, sure, why not? If I can't make it in psychology, I'll be an opera singer on Broadway as a consolation. Why not?
So, okay, so you started off, and so tell the rest of the story.
All of it.
Yes, I want
My life.
everybody to hear how you made it from being rejected into going to a class to entering from the back door into the music department, because apparently it doesn't matter what your GPA is in the music department, right? Or your test scores are.
Yeah. Well, it's true.
You were
Uh,
clever. It was clever.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, once I endured a full year of the voice major at Carnegie.
Endured.
It really required dance classes. They wanted to make you a triple threat in, singing, dancing, and acting. And it just turns out I'm a horrible actor and a horrible dancer, except for breakdancing. I can do breakdancing.
You did a really nice job dancing today, so I just want to acknowledge you.
Oh, thank you. That was really kind of you. I don't, I guess when it's spontaneous and I don't think about it too much,
Good.
like today. But yeah, it wasn't great doing ballet dancing, but after a full year, I went into the psychology program and I asked if I could become a minor in psychology. I was very nervous they were going to look at my IQ score at age 10 or something, or my SAT score. But the thing is, when you're in an environment where there's high expectations for your success, people just assume that you belong to be there, well, you're there for a reason. You're here at Carnegie Mellon, you must be smart. So they didn't question it. And she said, yeah, sure, you can be a minor in psychology. It's called foot in the door technique. When you want something you really want, you start off small. If you're in love with someone, you ask them out for coffee. You don't say, will you get married to me? That would be very creepy. So I just asked, can I be a minor in psychology? And the following semester, I went back to the same secretary and I said, can I be a major in psychology? I just loved it so much. I didn't know how much I would love it. And she's like, yeah, sure. And I just had to sign a piece of paper, two pieces of paper, maybe for the major. For the minor, just one piece. But anyway, it was very exciting to really realize my dream. And I haven't looked back since that day. Once I switched to psychology, I've just been obsessed with human nature and intelligence and creativity and well-being and stuff like that.
So because you really wanted this, even though your IQ test scores showed that you were below average intelligence, right? And then you were considered special needs, or they put you on these schools, and all the way you're being told something's broken, something's not right, something, and you're going, I need to bust out of this. I need to bust out of it. Not only did you bust out of it, but you did it in a major way. You figured out a way. So with this, when I heard your story, I thought, you've got some pearls to give someone today that has been told that they can't do something. And I do want to talk about the book, and I do want to talk about Abraham Maslow, that I feel that you're a kindred spirit with him. And
Yes.
But what advice would you give to somebody that feels, maybe they have dyslexia, ADHD, maybe they have a learning disability that goes beyond their understanding? What is your advice to them?
My advice to them is to be a self-advocate. Don't just expect that people are going to magically see your potential. Sometimes it requires showing people your potential and knowing yourself and trusting your experiences. A lot of people grow up. I hear something in the background.
I don't know how. Do you have a phone that's on? That's
So interesting.
Yeah, that's on your end.
Is it on my end?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it turned off. Somebody must have been around that was listening to it, maybe.
I don't know. Maybe there's people outside.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay, they're all listening. They're all listening. Okay, so go ahead, keep going.
do you remember what I was saying?
Yeah, I was asking for advice for people that
Oh,
have
I was
been
on a
told.
roll. I was
Yeah.
on a roll.
Yeah, you were. I'm sorry.
It's okay, not your fault. I said I was on a, you said it's important to be a self-advocate and to trust your experiences. A lot of people grow up not trusting their experiences. Maybe they're told by others that it's important to care about someone else's needs. Maybe you have a narcissistic parent. A lot of people who grow up with narcissistic parents end up not trusting their own basic needs and their own real felt experiences. A lot of people with learning disabilities as well, who have amazing strengths in other areas, might not really trust or be confident that they can do anything, much of anything in life, just because of one slice of them. It's just remember, it's just one slice of you. So yeah, I think becoming a self-advocate is really important, and having some sense of trust in your what Carl Rogers called your organismic valuing system. It's a very technical name for just believing in the organism of yourself. Who you are at an organic level.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. And so, after you graduated from your basic studies, and you decided to move on to get your PhD, how did that work out for you?
It all went downhill from there. No, I'm joking. Now I live on the street, and this is my virtual background. But no, I'm joking. So after I got my PhD, what did I do? I moved to New York, and I put my heart and soul into writing this up in a book, which I called Ungifted: Intelligence Redefined. It was my attempt to put all my personal experiences as well as the research together in one place, and propose a new theory of intelligence that I called the theory of personal intelligence.
And what could you share a little bit more about your theory?
Yeah, it's I define personal intelligence as the dynamic interplay of engagement and ability in pursuit of personal goals. So what I mean by that, I know it's a convoluted definition, but what I am emphasizing there is that it's intelligence applied to what? Ability, we talk about the importance of ability and intelligence a lot in schools, but in what way is it related to what lights you up, what you're engaged in, and what your future goals are? In what ways are those things linked?
Very good. And so with that, you focus on potential. So as you're, people are labeled all the time.
Yeah.
And so breaking out of that label requires some self-awareness. And so let's talk about how you got involved with this self-actualization with Abraham Maslow. At what point in your life are you going, this dude is speaking my language? That's right. That's right.
That's right.
Yes. Are we giving away any books today? I didn't ask you because we had very little time. I didn't know if we were or not.
I don't think so.
Okay, I texted Brooke and she'll let me know if they are or not. Okay, go ahead. So, at what point did you learn about Maslow, and how was that? How impactful was that in your life?
That was a couple years ago, and I was researching for a course I was teaching at University of Pennsylvania, positive psychology, and I was researching the history of the field of positive psychology, and I came across humanistic psychology, and it really opened up a whole new world to me. This whole field in the 50s and 60s, humanistic psychology, a bunch of people, including Abraham Maslow, but also Carl Rogers and Karen Horney, uh, and Roland May and Eric Fromm. They talked about what does it mean to be a whole person. You know, do you feel like you're a whole person?
For the most part, because as a certified life coach, I started my own journey for me, but it didn't start. I always felt that there was a hole in my soul, like there was a hole, a pinpoint in my heart, basically. And when I was silent and nobody was around, and it was just me, I could hear the wind go through the hole.
A lot of
I,
people can resonate with that, by the way.
well, and I just thought I was the only one. And then when I turned 47,
No,
um,
you're older than 47.
um, thank you. I'm 57. I just turned 57.
No, get out.
Yeah, high five. Thank you. So as I knew that as I was entering my 50th year, that I wasn't. Uh, my kids were gone now out of the house, and now my job was changing as a mom, as a wife. All these things were happening to me, and then that whole, like, I could hear that little whistle a little bit louder until somebody invited me to take some personal growth classes. I always loved personal growth, but for everybody else, because I love fixing things. But it was time for me to figure out what that hole was. And so from there, I went back after the program. I went back again, and I went in as a life to become a life coach. And it wasn't something that I set out to do. It was something that it was time for me to do. I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes complete sense. I'm starting to do coaching myself.
Good, good. And so for me, one of the things that I discovered was that I was more than just a mom, or I was more than just a person who worked or had a career, or I was more than just a cantor or a singer. Or I was more than just a friend. Or so I had to kind of compartmentalize and bring all those compartments together so that I could feel whole. And
Beautiful.
so that's how, so do I feel whole today? I feel more whole than I did before, but there's still things that I am wanting to change, to grow, and to learn. And that's why I'm in the classroom today with you, because I'm learning from you. I love the concept of transcending and to always being in that movement to grow. That
Wonderful.
whole classroom is about this. So
Absolutely. Your classroom is about this. That's wonderful. Um, yeah, so just returning back to me discovering Abraham Maslow, humanistic psychology. Once I discovered Abraham Maslow, I felt such a resonance with him and his way of thinking. And I read his journals, I read his personal diaries, and realized that he had been really misrepresented, and that he argued the highest motivation that we could have as humans wasn't self-actualization, but transcendence, and talked a lot about transcendence and what that means exactly, and how we can get more of it in our lives. And I became enraptured in it.
why do you think you were enraptured into it? What was it called you?
You know, when I was writing on Gifted, there I didn't wasn't aware of the field of positive psychology or really humanistic psychology. When I read that book over again, I'm like, oh my gosh, I basically recreated humanistic psychology. I wish I knew about humanist. Clearly, there was something already within me,
Correct.
um, that came out when I wrote about how I thought our way of thinking about intelligence wasn't um, our standard way of thinking about intelligence didn't encapsulate the whole person. There are a lot of things that I really felt in my gut. But when I made contact with humanistic psychology and Abraham Maslow, it felt like coming home in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it felt like a lot of things I'd been saying and thinking. Someone else, a kindred spirit, was out there. Now, don't ask me where it came from originally.
Mm-hmm. I won't ask you.
Yeah, that's a deeper question.
Yeah, it just, some things just are. And you don't know they are until you stumble upon them because you were meant to stumble upon it. And once you are in that path where you're ready for it, you'll see it.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure I could have been invited, and I had done a lot of retreats before, and I had done a lot of self-growth through the church. I had done all of that. But that was more global. That was about the relationship or about the church or about helping other people. This wasn't about any of that. At that moment, when I stumbled upon it, it was about me being about me and kind of figuring out those different compartments that I needed to heal that had been in my life, my entire life, but I didn't know. Or I was pretending not to know. Yeah.
You were in the church.
Excuse me?
You were in the church, and were you a cantor in church?
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
Amazing. I've only ever heard of the phrase cantor in a sort of synagogue context.
Well, I grew up in the Catholic faith, and so we are Christian Jewish people. So we have the same many of the same traditions that the Jewish faith has. Gotcha. And so as a cantor, I would bring the congregation in for song, and so that was a very special part of my life. And I no longer am doing that because I replaced my microphone in the church with my microphone in the classroom. And so either way, we're proclaiming good news. And so however that is, there's a season for everything. So going back to Maslow and the hierarchy of needs, as you're learning this, and now you are a psychologist who is helping other people, you're helping the people around you. What do you tell people? I know you talk about self-advocacy. You say, okay, be your own advocate. But what if it's somebody that has dyslexia, for example? I have a friend who has dyslexia, and I would love to sprinkle pixie dust on my friend and say, you can figure this out. You are enough to figure it out. But we all have our limiting beliefs. There's our own perceptions of what we can and cannot do. It's like you're too young to remember the character. I think it's called Foghorn, or if anybody out there is out there paying attention and you know that character where the rooster would come and taunt the dog, and the dog knew the rooster knew exactly how far the dog could go because of the noose would pull him back. And so that is kind of like many of us and how we operate in life. We don't need the noose anymore because we know how far we should go. So what are some of the words for someone who has that kind of disability that hasn't gone away? What can you tell them to heal that perspective?
Well, I would probably start sounding like a broken record, but I think that you have to remember this is just one slice of yourself. I mean, again, having dyslexia, there's no shame in having dyslexia. There's no shame. It's a characteristic of you. It's part of what makes you who you are, and there's some strengths to it, some hidden strengths of dyslexia in particular. You see an awful lot of entrepreneurs and artists represented among the dyslexic population, and a difficulty reading means that a lot of people start compensating and learning. I don't even like that word compensation, but the trade-off, the benefit is that they start to develop great skill at people, at interacting with other people, and speech and just like someone who focuses too much on a reading book, who becomes too bookish, might become awkward socially, whatever, just there's trade-offs in any direction, and I think someone with dyslexia needs to recognize the grass is not always greener on the other side. It's not, be blessed for who you are and for what you have. It's a much better way to live one's life than wish you didn't have the dyslexia, or wish, who knows what would happen if you didn't have the dyslexia. You might be a boring human, maybe this is what gives you your superpower. So that would be,
I love the superpowers. Everybody has superpowers, and it's so important that we look within to discover that, and or maybe ask somebody, if you can't see it in yourself, ask somebody you trust, that you love, that loves you, to say, this, a cheerleader in your life. We all need a cheerleader, no matter how evolved we are. Don't you love it when somebody says, "Good job, you're smart, I'm glad that you did this," or "Thank you for doing this"? Does everybody need acknowledgement? Does everybody crave that acknowledgement in that hierarchy?
It's funny. I'm going to give you a nuanced answer to that.
Okay.
as I do with everything. In my framework, my hierarchy of needs framework, need for self-esteem is just one of our many needs. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, for higher levels of spiritual growth, I would argue it'd be good to not need to rely on that. Of course, it'll feel good, and I agree with you. It feels good to say that, but for real growth to happen, it's important to not become addicted to that feedback.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's great. That's great. That is absolutely great, and very important as well. Okay, so you're in your book. Okay, let's talk about Transcend, a new science of self-actualization. So you're revving it up even a little bit more. And in your book, you talk about security, growth, and healthy transcendence. But then there's a section, and I said, I really want to focus on this section. And it is called The 7 Principles of Becoming a Whole Person.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. And so I wanted to maybe explore that. But before we do that, I just want to take a little break. And as I mentioned, I love acknowledging my sponsors who have partnered with us to grow the classroom. And I just want to make sure that when you go to whenyouneedafriend.com, that's my website, that you go ahead and like and follow, subscribe. So everything is there. Just click on my social media, my YouTube, everything, just click on it. And that is all you need to do. And go there, subscribe, follow, and like. So while you're there, make sure you check out my sponsors. Just scroll a little bit down and check out my sponsors like Nori Nutraceuticals. Nori stands for Nutritional Oncology Research Institute. We also have Keep Me Safe Organics, First Alternative Care Telemedicine, the pharmacy in Merritt Island, Live Longer Medical, and we have the affiliate programs like Ground Therapy and Brain Tap. And so make sure you're supporting my sponsors the way that they're supporting the classroom. And if you look, they'll say, it'll show you a percentage that you can take off if you buy through the website. Also, you can become an enrolled student and help promote and grow the classroom, your time, your talent, your treasure. So either you can donate $1 all the way to $1,000 a month, whatever it is that you can afford, we will be so grateful for. So just become an enrolled student and help us grow. So today we're talking to Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman, who is right there with his book, Transcend. It's a new science of self-actualization. There we go. There it is. Perfect. You've gotten really good at that, Vanna. And so what we want to do is learn a little bit more about ourselves in order for us to transcend. This was the thing, Scott, that kind of got me. And by the way, if you guys have any questions, or if you want to ask a question privately, you can text me at 407-373-5959. If you have any questions about about the class today, or with Scott, or anything that we're talking about, you can type in a Q, write your question down, and we'll ask it, if not before or after the podcast, because we're recording everything. So with that in mind, okay. So with that in mind, let's talk about the 7 keys here that you're the principles of becoming a whole person. The first one is accept your whole self, not just your best self.
Yes. We have a tendency to include aspects of ourself that we don't like, as to not include them as part of ourself, to disavow them and say that's not really me. There's a phrase that you see a lot in the self-help literature called the real self. Who is your real self? And I critique that a little bit and argue that it's good to take responsibility for your whole self, as a take responsibility. It's quite important in one's life. And if you go through your whole life blaming every negative aspect of yourself on others and taking full responsibility for all the good bits, that's you're never going to grow.
No. No, that's great. That's great. And we do have some questions, Robert. Do we have some questions? I don't see the queue, so we have some comments, but we'll address that in a little bit. So accept your whole self, not just your best self. That's great advice. And so the second one is learn to trust yourself, actualization tendencies. So what does that mean?
That relates to what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about the importance of trusting your own experiences. There is within each of us a core potential that wants to grow and wants to be a better person. It often gets drowned out. It often gets suppressed, squashed by our anxieties, societal expectations, but it's there. And that's really just about learning to trust it. And when you hear it, even if someone else is telling you, trying to get you, pulling you away from it, sometimes it's important to protect it. It's very easy, for instance, on social media like Twitter, to get sucked into someone else's drama or trauma, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it takes a lot of courage to resist being forced into someone else's trauma and reclaim your self-actualizing tendency.
And so do you have any tips for that control, for that self-control?
Turn off your computer.
And your television, right? That's a great tip right there. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be talking with Harry Vox. And that was one of the tips that he gave too, just turn off your television. So, okay, so number 3, become aware of your inner conflicts.
That's exactly right. Become aware of areas of yourself that are at war with each other, and they exist because you're human. I talk about the romantic domain in the book, and how that's a great example. People wonder why divorce is so common. I don't wonder why divorce is common, because I know human nature. We have all these sides, that we have lust, but then we have love, and then we have friendship feeling, and it's amazing. And when all these things come together, it's beautiful, and you should cherish it, but it often they pull apart. And the same thing about so many different areas of our life. So it's the best thing you can do is become conscious of them. Don't let them control you. The more that you can become aware of things, the less they'll control you.
And becoming aware of something, I know that you have, you also have another section called Grow Challenge. And so you're able to go in there. And number 4, and the reason why I wanted to mention the Grow Challenge in your book, it's because you have the lopsided development. Look out for lopsided development. And that's one of the challenges that you have for growth challenges. Yeah. So can you share a little bit about the lookout for the lopsided development?
Yeah, it relates to the other one, but when you have a particular need that is it's too exaggerated compared to the others, it'll take over your whole system. It has the power to take over your whole system. Uh, Rowell may call that the daimonic. Whatever's that thing within you that has the power to overtake your whole being. And it might be your need for independence. Sometimes you might have such lopsided development that your need for independence overshadows everything else, so that you don't see opportunities for connection. There are some people, who at the slightest hint of a commitment, they run away. It might be even a gym membership. No, I'm not going to commit to a gym. Any contract of any sort. And you might want to study those trends. Some people might have the opposite too, by the way. They might have lopsided development in a need to be liked by others. So any hint at all that someone might not like them, you then start contorting yourself in ways that aren't really you, just so that the person will like you. But why are you doing that? Does that person really even deserve that? Like, why? Have some self-respect.
Very good. I
It.
could just hear you coaching. Why? Have some self-respect.
Yeah. Sometimes people just need to hear the direct truth, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So then now we're looking at number 5, which is create the best version of yourself.
Easy, right?
All right.
Well, we have lots of different versions of ourselves that we could be. A lot of it is about creating yourself and taking conscious control over what the highest values you want to enact. What do you want it to be? And trying to make it as conscious as possible, and be the author of your life. There are so many potentialities within you that one could actualize, and you need to really think through what would be the best version. What would that look like?
Mm-hmm.
I think we have an intuitive sense when we're going down a certain direction that, if taken to the extreme, is not a particularly flattering version of ourselves. So I think we have an intuitive sense of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be able
Well,
to do.
you have lots of tips on your growth challenges, and one of the tips that you give is what is your ikigai?
Ikigai, I think.
Ikigai. It's the reason for living, and I wonder if that reason for living could help create our best self.
Oh, for sure. Reason for living, having a sense of what gets me up in the morning, what having some future goal that energizes you and that keeps you moving in a forward momentum, that really energizes you and makes you feel vital in life. It's very important to choose things in life that make you feel vital and that don't feel depleting
Mm-hmm.
of your energy and limited resources.
Yeah. Okay, so Steve, thank you so much for sharing. I've been looking down once in a while, and I've been catching, like, it's hard for me to listen and talk and read at the same time. So, but I've been looking and kind of getting like certain words. Yeah, I can do that. I just can't do that plus chew gum plus do all this other stuff.
Can you read
But
some comments? Can you read some comments?
yes, I would like to read it. So Steve has said something. He's gone back, and by the way, Camilla, thank you for the leghorn foghorn. That is the cartoon. I grew up. I have like images. Like when I think in pictures, but my husband says I think in cartoon characters, and I believe he's more correct than I am. So Loghorn, foghorn, learned a lot from them, and so Steve says. Has a learning disability. I can relate to what you're saying. Didn't graduate high school, but I earned a GED. You can do anything despite your disability. So, and then Steve says it's important to believe in yourself. And he also says that he was picked on a lot in school because I was different. Did you experience this? And how were you able to overcome these challenges as you have become the person you are today? Great question. Thank you, Steve.
Did Steve say what his learning disability was?
Steve, can you share what your learning disability is?
He doesn't have to, of course. But...
Of course, no, not. And let me check and see what we have going on YouTube here. Okay, so are you country? Oh yeah, country. Okay, so Steve turned over. He went over to slow learner. He said he's a slow learner.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and you're a PhD now. Yeah.
Right, that's right. But that doesn't mean anything.
Well, I mean, it means that, okay, I love, I was told my freshman year in college and throughout high school that I was a horrible writer. Well, I wrote 4 years as an adult for the Florida Today, and I was a contributor for the Florida Today. I'm in the process of writing a book, but I was told that I was a horrible writer. I think I just was ahead of my time, really. I wrote how I spoke, and that was not proper at the time. But now, I remember all these articles that I wrote defying all odds that I would never, and I was told when I was 7 years old that I would never amount to much by my second grade teacher. The only teacher's name that I remember is Mr. Torres. And he was the one that told me I would never amount to much. So those are little things that we carry with us that we don't even know are part of that little hole in our spirit. So he's asking you, how did you overcome? Were you teased when you were in school?
Yeah, I was. And I'm a big believer in not letting your traumas define you. I'm just not a big fan of victimhood being your identity. Because I think that one can experience a lot of stress in one's life, but still have show post-traumatic growth, as it's called, and find meanings for what happened to you and use it as a launch pad. See, if you're stuck in the victimhood mindset your whole life, and it's a trap, because you never grow, you never move anywhere. In my sailboat metaphor, that's why I have a sailboat behind me. I have a whole, you can, if someone wants to Google Scott Barry Kaufman sailboat metaphor, you can find it on my website. But I have a description about it. But I really think that's a good way of thinking about life. If you work on the boat all your whole life, you never open the sail. But I admit it's really, I admit that it's tough. I was bullied quite a bit. But I think those experiences made me who I am today and have made me a more compassionate adult and advocating for other people who have gone through similar experiences. It has made me a better person. It has helped me grow. I don't complain about it every day of my life, if you know what I'm saying. I use it as part of me as a launch pad.
And I'd like to also add to Steve that I have 4 questions on my page, and one of my registered service mark is you can take a pill, you can take responsibility, because I focus on doing everything we possibly can. I'm not against the pill. I'm for doing everything we can to live the life that we want. Basically, we're very like-minded that way, Scott. And so responsibility, the word responsibility, I believe, has a bum rap. Responsibility is a blame, shame, fault, or duty. And so I am reframing the word responsibility to ownership, the word responsibility to freedom and empowerment. And so there are 4 questions that on my page at whenyouneedafriend.com, and you can take anything that you feel victimized on and write it down. And then take these 4 questions and answer them. First of all, how did I create it? And any of these questions you answer them without blame, shame, fault, or duty. It is what it is, And the second question is, what are the gifts and lessons? The third question is, now that I know how to create it, what are the gifts and lessons? And what's going to be different is the third question. And finally, the last question is, now that I know how I created it, what are the gifts and lessons? What's going to be different? How can I use this for the greater good? Which is what Dr. Kaufman is doing right now. He is taking his experiences and using it for the greater good. Those are the 4 questions of taking responsibility. And so I just want to add that to what you're saying. And so also I want to encourage you to go to scottbarrykaufman.com. That's another place where you can also grow as well. So Camilla has a question, and I do want to, let's see how much time we have left. Camilla, I'll ask you a question once the podcast is done, but I wanted to get through the 7. So we are on 5, create the best version of yourself. We did that one. Number 6, strive for growth, not happiness. I thought that was beautiful. Strive for growth, not happiness. Can you explain a little bit more?
Yes. So many people are shooting for happiness. That's their goal. And that's a terrible goal. It's nice to want it and to have, but usually happiness usually comes as an outgrowth of growth. Happiness usually comes as an outgrowth of growth, not as the driver of growth. I see. When we focus on ourselves, and we focus on becoming a better person, and we focus on becoming realizing our values, we feel a deep abiding sense of happiness that is much deeper than a momentary fleeting feeling of positive emotions. I mean, I feel happy after having a pecan pie, but that disappears about 5 minutes afterwards.
That does not lead to growth. Maybe the growth of your belt and your waistline.
Yes. Yes, that's good. Yes. But what I really want help people with is to have a deeper sense of fulfillment than what they probably knew was possible.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing better than feeling like you've accomplished something or that you've learned something. I always say you can go home. If you learn something new, go home, and the last breath you take should be the last time you say, I don't need to learn anything. It's like you're done. And even that, we don't even know what happens after that. So number 7, before we answer any of the questions left, is harness the power of your dark side. Ooh, Luke, I am your father. So let's talk about the dark side, our shadow side.
My students at Columbia University, that's their favorite exercise, is the Explore Your Dark Side exercise. Because I think a lot of people don't, maybe they grew up with a lot of shame. Maybe they had really strict parents or deeply religious parents sometimes, who any feeling they had, they were made to feel shame or guilt over it, like certain impulses to anxieties, fear, all these emotions that we classify as dark emotions, which they're really just uncomfortable emotions. That's really what they are. We don't need to judge them. When you feel if you feel jealousy, for instance, I know it's in the Bible, like you shouldn't, if you feel any of these things, you're going to be stoned. Well, oh my gosh, that's so heavy. Like I would reframe that teaching in a different way. That the value of thinking about this stuff is that it gives you awareness of what exists within you. But it's important in mindfulness not to have judgment over those things, and to explore them. And exploration and acceptance actually gives you, paradoxically, the power to change it. You're not going to change it if you don't accept it. You're going to keep running away from it your whole life. And I'm not a big fan of avoiding our experiences. I think they'll come back stronger the more you try to run away from them.
And they also get trapped in your body in a cellular level. And so that's what promotes disease later on in life. And so you might be avoiding it, but you're carrying it around like a sack of potatoes, a 20, 50-pound sack of potatoes. So I always say, get it done, one and done, work on it, get it done, so that you're not dragging it around going, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it, because the body will give you something to deal with. It's called dis-ease. So it's not even a theory. It's been proven time and time again. They even have charts about that. that if this happened to you, this is the part of the body that will break down. If this happened to you, this is the part of the body that breaks down. So it's so important to deal with it. I love your book. And I told Brooke, I said, I want this in Audible. I want this in Audible. So I want to be able to drive around and listen to it. Go ahead.
There is an Audible format.
I know. I saw.
Oh, cool.
I checked you out.
We got to get you. Make sure we get you an Audible copy.
Absolutely. And I want to encourage all of you to go to scottbarrykaufman.com. Also, we're going to stick around and ask some of the questions. If you have any questions, ask. And for those of you who are listening on podcast or watching on BitChute later on, you can always join us live at whenyouneedafriend.com. Click onto the live or YouTube or Facebook. Please remember, thank you so much, Scott, for being in the classroom today and being a wonderful teacher. We're going to continue our conversation. Oh, you're going to continue to dance. Please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
So I tell you what, the same sweetness that I saw when you gave your TED Talk, I experienced it today. So I want to thank you for being genuine and just being yourself. And I love how you pause to think of what you want to say. And I think many of us should learn that little trick right there, to pause and stop and think about what you want to say next, because that would solve a lot of wars. It would stop a lot of things from happening, maybe even divorces. You never know. So with that in mind, we have the what?
Make once one realize that they need to initiate a divorce. After some thought. Yes.
Exactly. Okay, so Camilla has a question. She wants advice for ADD children outside of pills that may or may not already take. So they want advice outside of that.
Sure. There's a lot of mindfulness programs that have been shown to be really helpful for kids with ADHD. Mark Burton, Bertin, I highly recommend looking up his book, his work. You can hear him on my own podcast I host called the Psychology Podcast.
You do?
Yeah.
I did not check that out.
Yeah, and he was on my podcast talking about ADHD and mindfulness. Some of the science of it shows some quite remarkable improvements for these kids, and helping them to manage their attention and focus. I mean, but a lot of kids with ADHD have amazing creative strengths. I have an article I wrote for Scientific American called the Creative Gifts of ADHD, something like that. So we have to make sure we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
You know, I really believe, and I love the message that you're bringing to the world through your own journey, through your own story, which is never underestimate the power of potential. Because you can label somebody slow, and if they believe it, it will completely change their life. And if they don't believe it, it will completely change their life.
Yeah.
You did not believe it.
What did I not believe?
That you were slow. That there. You didn't believe that lie. I have a meme, and as someone who loves to write and someone who journals, I remember looking at the word. I was being frustrated. I have a vision board, and I was frustrated. And I always know that if I don't believe in something, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So I believe so much in what my vision board was, that I was frustrated when it wasn't happening. And I'm like, okay, all of a sudden I know I'm doing something here. I've got to take that ownership and figure out, how did I create this? All of a sudden I looked at my vision board, and I cut like words, and there was the word believe was there. but the word was in white, but the IE was in red. And as I was blow drying my hair, I looked at that IE and I saw the LIE. And all of a sudden I paused and I thought, what's the lie in the center of my belief? What is keeping me from that? What is the lie? And that was the question. I even created a meme about it. You know, it's like, what's the lie in the center of our belief? And really, many of our beliefs are based from lies.
Yeah.
So it's so important that we not buy into the lie.
Yeah.
And reformat it. So with that in mind, are there any other disabilities that you've been able to work with? I mean, we talked about dyslexia very quickly and ADHD. Is there another learning disability that you have like, oh my God, I know exactly how you can learn, and this is what you need to do, and all of a sudden the sky will open for you? Do you have that kind of formula?
No, I don't believe in formulas. And
Okay, good.
I think that everyone needs to discover what works best for them in their lives and how they want to self-actualize. I think that one of the greatest things for me was learning to not be what my friend Michael Gervais calls FOPO, fear of people's opinions. And overcoming my FOPO has changed my life. And you know, you kind of have to speak your truth and or what you believe to be the truth. And you know, it's one of those things that if you try to please a couple people, you end up pissing off everyone else. You'll never win. You'll never please everyone. So
pleasing yourself. So what was one key to FOPO? What was the first thing you did?
practice.
The what?
Practice. It's like a muscle. The more I start saying things that I really believe, even if they're controversial, and then you see it empowers you. You know, some people fear it their whole lives. Well, instead of whatever you fear, just start doing it. And little by little, you know, it becomes more manageable and tangible and empowering. You know, I used to be scared to death to talk to women.
And
used to be
you practice.
So shy, you know, so shy. I mean, talking to women that I've, you know, not just any woman, but, you know, if I saw someone on the street who I found was attractive or something, it's like, how could I ever say hi? How could I, you know, and I would fall apart. But you know, you just practice. You start to, you know, just you realize women are human too. You know, you realize
that's a great realization.
You know, you realize we're all shy. You know, we're all in this together. And you just keep practicing the things you fear the most.
You know, Tim Ferriss, I'm sure you know who he is.
Yes.
He's got his fear setting. You've heard of his fear setting. It was where you write down everything that you're fearful of, and then you make a plan just in case it happens, and you have it all written down, and you have different scenarios, and then but if it doesn't happen, what could happen there too? And so that fear setting is I thought it was so brilliant about that. And to be able to, and I didn't like being shy.
Yeah.
I hated being shy, but I was too shy to get out of it.
I know.
Until one day I saw a good friend of mine. We went into this meeting together, and I sat down right away because, you know, me being a shy girl, you know, I sat down right away, and she worked the room all the way around. And I thought, that's what I want. And so I started doing it a little bit at a time, and I started learning how to talk to people. How do you talk to people? And that's how I did it. So I was able to practice it to the point where my comfort zone has expanded. So now you can talk to any woman you want.
I wouldn't say I'm there yet. But you know, I'm much better at approaching someone if I'm interested in them than I used to be. But I'll still clam up. I'll see someone who I want to ask out at a restaurant that I frequent, And I think to myself, oh, but don't change the nature of we're real chummy, it takes a big risk to move from friendship chummy to showing a romantic interest. I feel like that's always a big risk. So I always try to, sometimes I just err on forget it, just keep the chumminess, because I come here a lot. Well, I don't want to make things awkward if it.
But what if it works? What if it works?
That's the thing, is maybe I should start thinking like that.
Yeah, we always tend to think realism is the worst case scenario. I think you need to be an equal opportunity setter. So, if you're going to think about what could be the worst thing, which will keep you from doing whatever it is you want, or you can even go through that scenario and go through what's the best thing that could happen. What could happen if it all works out? And that's still realism too. Why is one more realistic than the other? I don't know.
I know. Thanks for the free coaching session.
Yeah, I'll get on your podcast. We'll go on your podcast and we'll talk about it. All the guys that want to ask a girl out, we'll set some goals. But anyway, so we have a couple of comments here.
About 5 minutes.
Yeah. Camilla said, difficulties memorizing is his psychological issue. I have a problem memorizing things too. I just speak from my heart. I've learned to develop that. What about you, Scott?
Is this person saying that they've noticed that one of my psychological issues is memorizing things?
No. This was a follow-up. Oh, no. This was a follow-up with a child that had ADHD.
Oh.
That was one of his issues. There you go. I'm so sorry.
One of Scott's issues.
My bad.
That'd be funny. Yeah. So what's the question though?
That you must have asked what the issue was for the ADHD. I don't know.
Maybe perhaps. So I see they're following up. Thank you for following.
They're following up. The psychological issue is difficulties with memorization, and just let them speak from the heart. And
involved in activities that will get you in that flow state.
Exactly. And you should try Brain Tap too. Brain Tap is a really good thing. You can get it for free on my website at whenyouneedafriend.com. Try it for 15 days, put it on and look at some of the different meditations that they have in there that might help. Steve says, no worries about what others think of you. That's the best advice. Yeah. You don't need to please anyone. You need to do it, which is good for you. Thank you, Steve.
Steve is our most active.
I know. Steve gets the prize today. He should get a book. I have a steady girlfriend now for 3 years. You can live a normal life despite the challenges. I was shy and didn't have hardly any friends when I was younger. So
was that Steve?
Steve, yeah.
Was that Steve? Wow, Steve. I'm so proud of you, Steve.
Yeah.
I feel like high five.
Me too.
Steve,
Let's give him a 4-5.
Yeah, I love it.
This is great. I love Steve. And Steve also must have written on the also on YouTube. I'll have to check a look at that. Thank you so much. So I know that you have a time commitment and I want to be honoring of that. So thank you so much. This was a great, I knew that our conversation would be so helpful to so many who have been told that they're not enough, or that they're not good enough, or that they're not smart enough. It's not enoughness. And so I'm glad that you're living testimony that you can be enough. Is there any final words? Why did you write the book? Why did you feel that you wanted to write this book, Transcend?
Well, I felt like I had something to say. It really is not much more complicated than that. I felt like a mission to talk about my lifelong research on human potential and set the record straight about self-actualization. We don't fully self-actualize and realize our potential until we help realize the potential of others. And wanted to spread that message. So, well,
I'm grateful for you for spreading that message. Thank you so much. And please remember, go to scottbarrykaufman.com. And the book is called Transcend, the New Science of Self-Actualization. You want to show the book one more time?
Oh, I messed up. I'm supposed
Vanna. We're going to have to fire him.
No.
No. Yeah, so let's do it again. So remember the book Transcend, the new science of self-actualization. There you go. Oh, there you go. There it is. There you go. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching today. Tomorrow we'll be on at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:05 with Harry Vox. We're going to talk some more about all hands on deck. And so hopefully you will join us there. Please remember to share, to send this, to help us grow. This is your part as well, is to motivate people into personal growth, even if they feel that they don't need it. Maybe they can learn a little bit more about the book Transcend, and we can continue to grow together.
So thank you for having me on.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. So hold on a second. Let's say goodbye to everybody. Say goodbye to everybody on